What's up, YouTube? So before we get started with this video, on first take, well, Stephen A. Smith's going to be doing a little bit of backtracking on his thoughts of the Toronto Raptor Milwaukee Bucks series. So let's see what they have to say about that.
How surprised are you that we now have a series in the Eastern Conference?
I'm stunned. I thought it was over after game one. I really did, because I thought that was the Raptors' opportunity to take advantage of this series. The Milwaukee Bucks had nearly a week off after obliterating the Boston Celtics in the conference semifinals. They were rested. They were ready to go, but they were rusty because they hadn't been shooting the ball in game action. They had missed. They went like 11 for 44 from three-point range. They only made 25% of their three-pointers as well. Kawhi Leonard had over 30. Kyle Lowry had 30 points that game, and still Toronto managed to lose the game. So I thought that was Toronto's opportunity. They had blown it, and that this series was a foregone conclusion. And then they got obliterated, meaning the Raptors, in game two. I knew they...
So Stephen A. Smith, you should definitely know better than to call a series, especially out of the best out of seven, on the first game. I mean, the first game, there's just too much basketball to be played to be making a judgment on the series off of a one game. And I can understand if the talent level was so lopsided either way with the teams that, you know, you can probably make a educated guess as to what's going to happen, but it's not like that with the between Toronto Raptors and the Milwaukee Bucks. They pretty much only have one superstar piece between Giannis and Kawhi Leonard, and everybody else are generally supporting cast. So it's not like either team has 4 or 5 superstars and the other team has 1 star, and you can tell, you know, they're just going to get beat up. It's not like that. It's not like that between Milwaukee and the Toronto Raptors, and they proved that. So let's keep going.
Win game 3 and pull within 2-1, but I thought Milwaukee would come out ready to roll, particularly after the Greek Freak was held to just 12 points in game 3. I thought that he would come out like a monster in game 4, which he did at the start of the game, but then ultimately, even with a hobbled Kawhi Leonard, courtesy of a collective defensive effort on the part of the Toronto Raptors, they were neutralized, and they figured out something that I don't think any of us had seen, and it was this, guys. When you look at the Milwaukee Bucks right now, the ball is usually in the Greek Freak's hands, okay? When you have a situation, particularly on the offensive, on the defensive side of the ball, when Toronto has the ball, Toronto kept putting Milwaukee in switching situations involving Brook Lopez, involving Mirotic, and obviously when you look at it with those two guys, along with Ilyasova, you see those guys in switching situations where they have to defend an on-ball guy. They couldn't handle it. And so Toronto was finding a way to take advantage of that offensively, even with a hobbled Kawhi Leonard, and Milwaukee seemed ill-equipped to do anything about it. I understand they're going home and they're a different team at home, and Toronto may be a different team on the road. But if I'm the Toronto Raptors, I'm going into Game 5 with virtual house money because I'm confident I can close the deal in Game 6. Game 5 puts all the pressure on Milwaukee. They've got to win that game or come back to Toronto to win Game 6 if they find themselves losing Game 5. And I think that all the pressure is on Milwaukee right now because we've seen them get a bit exposed when the Greek Freak is not on a roll.
So I think you're kind of right about that, Stephen A. Smith. I wouldn't talk about playing with house money or making any type of snap judgments like you did with game 1 because we already know how it can go the opposite way of what you said, for one. For two, let's not forget about Kawhi Leonard putting in work against the Greek Freak. And I mean putting in work. So what was it, the third game, he only got 12 points? That's because Kawhi Leonard put the claws down on him. He put the clamps down on him. He put the handcuffs on him and locked him down is what Kawhi Leonard did, okay? And as far as Giannis, even more, he's being exposed because he's pretty much getting all his work done in the paint. If you shut him down in the paint, you lock him out doing whatever in the paint, he's not going to be doing too much outside of 10 feet out. He's been exposed. He's been exposed. So, I don't know. Let's keep going.
I think you've seen this series all wrong from the beginning. It's not a series until the home team loses. Toronto won 59 games 2 years ago, first in the East, but they didn't have a Kawhi Leonard on the team. They won 58 games this year. The only reason that's not first in the East is because the Bucks won 60 games because they got Budenholzer and built around Giannis the proper way. It's a clash of the Titans. I've said from the beginning, this is to determine who the best player in the world is. Is it Giannis or is it Kawhi? And right now, Kawhi is
So, Max, again, here you go again with the best player in the world. You should just really leave that alone because all you do is you flip-flop. If Milwaukee wins, Giannis is the best player in the world, yada, yada, yada. If Toronto wins, Kawhi Leonard is the best player in the world, yada, yada, yada. Leave it alone. If you want to make any type of rankings, just say both of these guys are top 5 players. So you don't have to worry about ranking them and then changing it the next week or the next game when somebody else wins or somebody loses. Just say these guys are top 5 players in the NBA right now and in no particular order. Just leave it at that. You don't need to be talking about snap judgments about who's the best right now and making those type of judgments. Just say these guys are top 5 players. These guys are ballers, and just leave it at that. There's no reason to be ranking anybody like that right now, especially if the season's not over. Nobody's won a championship yet, so I would just hold off on that. So let's keep going.
Lead, but more than just that, that's an oversimplification. Neither one of these teams, and this is why the Warriors are alive with or without KD, neither one of these two teams has a bona fide, surefire all-star other than their superstar, other than their MVP caliber player. On the Bucks, it can be Middleton. He's kind of a bubble-type all-star. I think maybe Brogdon under the right circumstances. Bledsoe at his best, right? On the Raptors, can Lowry be that guy? Siakam seems to be developing that way. But really what we have at this point still are 2 MVPs and a bunch of above-average starters, no doubt about it, with some upside, with some potential, but really role players. And so what happens in the playoffs to role players? Generally, you can rely on them at home more than you can on the road. As much as I've made this about Giannis versus Kawhi, and I believe in many respects it is, it's also about 2 similarly constructed teams with a lot of above-average players who need to step up. Now, the reason I like the Bucks is I think the ups, like Brogdon, I think is really good. Middleton, I think, is maybe better than anyone else on the Raptors, and he played well last night. But it still comes down to who's going to show up, right? Mirotic is no good. Ilyasova's no good. Bledsoe's been awful. So those guys lose. Toronto's role players stepped up. Yesterday, they won. I believe when the series goes back to Milwaukee, the Milwaukee role players will step up, and it will be a 3-2 series.
Well, Max, first of all, a couple of things. Number one, I have attitude. I'll be the first to admit it to both you and Will because I was on the line in customs for 2 hours. I didn't get hooked up like I thought I would, Max. It was very, very difficult.
Wait, I was there when you got the...
Now, wait a minute, Stephen A. I don't want to keep hearing about your travel situation right now, all right? Because that $10 million extra bonus you're getting a year, that means you stand in customs for as long as possible, and we don't have to hear it, okay? We don't have to hear it, okay? Because going to those games, the NBA championship games, that's good. I would stand in customs all day to be going to being a reporter on those type of games, professional games, and getting paid to do it. Okay, so I don't want to hear about your travel woes or your travel status. Okay, so let's keep going.
No, I was so disgusted. They had me in customs, Mac. It took me 2 hours to get from the airport after I landed. After I was in the line, it took me 2 hours to get to downtown Toronto because of them damn customs. I was not looked out for. So, damn it, I'm not rooting for the Raptors. That's number one.
That's why. You've been talking bad about the Raptors. They got you.
They got me good. That's why I got my sneakers on this morning, because I'm preparing to have to stand in line again if necessary. I can't trust anybody in Canada right now. And I love the city. It's a beautiful city. But I can't trust anybody in Canada right now. But let me get back to your point. Let me ask you this question. When you talk about the series, and I had it all wrong because guess what? It's not a series until a home team loses. Max Kellerman, if Toronto loses Game 5, but then wins Game 6, right? Each team would have won at home. Is it a series then going into Game 7?
If Toronto wins Game 5...
So I don't understand. What's there to even think about? I mean, if it goes to a Game 2 or 3, then you have a series, right? It's got to be a series. And surely, if both teams are 2-2, that has to be a series, right? I mean, I don't know. What type of question is that? That's got to be a trick question, or I missed something in that question that is completely throwing me off. Because I figure if these teams are 2-2, they both won at home twice, then that's got to be a series. Let alone, both teams have 1-1, that's got to be a series. But I'm just going to assume that I missed something again, and let's keep it rolling.
Saying if they defend home court,
in other words, I'm basically debunking the theory that, it's not a series until the home team loses. A home team can win every game. It's still a series. It's still a series. That's all I'm saying.
Of course, but you would favor the Bucks. They have home court. Until one of these two teams shows they can win on the road, the Bucks will be favored. They're still the favorites today, I am sure, because they have that home court. Even you admitted as much when you said Toronto now is playing with house money. In a way, the pressure's on the Bucks because Toronto goes and steals a Game 5. The Bucks have not yet shown that they can win on the road. My point is this: two evenly matched teams, two evenly matched superstars, in my